And then, all right, can you see that?
Yep.
All right. So hello, everyone. I am Spencer Dietrich. I'm the post-fire recovery lead for Umpqua Watersheds, and I am currently a student attending UCC for natural resources. And with being the post-fire recovery lead at Umpqua Watersheds has led me to do a pretty interesting project to help restore some riparian areas out in the Umpqua. So this is the main project I worked on. It's out at the North Umpqua Trail Mott section. My position has been helped funded by the Forest Service, so we did this in coordination with them and also the Oregon Youth Corps. So basically, how we got a bunch of plants from the Forest Service, as you can see in this picture here. And we led multiple different volunteer programs or the volunteer things. And then we also directly coordinated with the Phoenix Youth Corps to help reseed and plant the area, so to help aid in the fire recovery so that the area could recover healthily. So our before our first volunteer event, we had a fair bit of planting beforehand, and then just kind of scouting out the area for good areas to plant. And for our first event, we got about 1,000 plants in the ground with I think it was like 7 or 8 people, which I think is a pretty good rate for it. And then, as you can see here, we got a picture of all the volunteers in the background just planting. And then, so just to kind of show the impacts of Archie Creek Fire, you can see the before and after pictures. Like, the whole area used to be forested before the fire came in. You can see from the aerial view, but also like this view right here, that it really just knocked down a lot of the trees. So the area needs to be replanted so that there can be some like cover during the summer and all that for all the smaller species. And so we got a just like general map data of where so the blue area is where the volunteers planted, and then we had the red areas where OICC planted. So we had to pause operations due to the Phoenix crew having a spring break, but after that, and then also after all the heavy storms and rain that we had this winter, we got right back to it and planted this section here, which we had a little bit of overlap with the volunteers later on, but that's fine because near the end it wasn't as heavily planted by the OICC crew, which you can see more pictures of them planting, a couple good ones. And then, so the second volunteer event, we had, I think it was like 5 people, and we managed to plant 500 plants in the ground, which is really good. And all these plants are just a bunch, like a wide variety of native plants that just kind of help restore the ecosystem. And then the remaining plants we ended up planting with the OICC crew. And so another big question is, what is watersheds in the actual name of Umpqua Watersheds? Well, a watershed is an area that just all the water from the area kind of just like drains down into like a bigger source of water, like a lake or a river. And an example I can give right now about it is that so we got a lot of snow recently, and a lot of that, depending on the area, will stay packed it up, but a lot of it's going to melt. And when that all melts, it's going to flow down the mountain to the bigger like rivers and lakes. which I think is relevant example and for what a watershed is. And then what's a riparian area? So a riparian area kind of acts as like a buffer zone between the river and land. These areas generally have like high biodiversity and kind of help filter out like water just because of how their soil is composed. Because a lot of the times it's like it's not just straight dirt, it's like mixed dirt mixed with like sand and stuff. There's maybe even some rocks mixed in that helped, kind of filter out all the bad things in the water before it enters the river. And the picture to the right here is another picture of the North Umpqua Trail Mott section, which we were working on. And see, it definitely needs some help growing, but overall, it's starting to all come back up. And last time we were there the other weekend, like the trail's already growing back. The trail's basically growing over with plants right now because since the bridge is out and it's kind of a hard section to access. Plus, it's also a danger zone for high winds can easily knock down any of these burned trees. And so why they're important is because they serve as areas of high diversity because of their vicinity to water. Many different animals and plants like to relax in them just because normally for a normal riparian area, the tree cover offers like cool shade next to the water. So it's like during the summer, it's an extremely cool place for them to relax. And depending on the structure of it, it can help slow down the water a little bit with like woody debris falling into the river, which is great for habitat or salmon habitat buildup because over time, if there's like a down log in the water, like sediment is going to just build up behind it and just keep slowing down the water. And in the sediment, since it's slowed down, they can kind of just build their spawn there. And even during high flows, like a lot of these riparian areas are considered wetlands and can easily store water so that during high flows, they absorb it. And then when the water starts to get lower, they kind of drain back into it. And because of this, the composition of the soil, the soil is extremely nutrient rich, which kind of promotes all sorts of vegetation growth. Though a lot of it's native, depending on the disturbance of it, some invasives might grow in there, which move to cover that. So I'm going to list the most 3 common invasives you'll see just anywhere around the Umpqua. I'm sure some of you might have 1 or 2 of these in your backyard, depending on the size. So we have the Himalayan blackberry, which is a very common one. We have a native blackberry, actually. I forget, it's like a crawling blackberry. The way I kind of describe it is the thorns are a lot less aggressive looking than the Himalayan blackberry. Like they're a lot smaller and there's more of them, but they aren't as aggressive. But to get rid of these, you'll want to cut them at the base. And a lot of these, if they've been growing for long enough, they have a root ball, which they store all their energy at, which if possible, you should remove it. But in the case that you can't really disturb the ground or anything like that, so blackberries can actually regrow from their vines if they have enough energy stored up. So when cutting blackberries, it's generally recommended to cut them into smaller portions so that they can't regrow from the vines. And then we got bull thistle here, which during the summer, spring, like later spring, it'll start to seed, which the seeds, like if you don't cut one of them and they seed, it's kind of like, even if you like get the whole patch except for that one, it spreads out from that because the seeds are wind dispersed. and there's probably like 100, 200 seeds in one of those heads. So if it's seeding, you want to remove the head first and like kind of bag it in a bag that you won't really like leak or anything like that. And so that the seeds are all contained so they won't spread. And then you have to, if you cut it at the base so it has like less green areas so it can't absorb that much energy from the sun. And for these, repeated treatment is preferred because even if you cut, I've had examples where I've cut bull thistle 1 week and then the next week they're already starting to sprout up again with the energy that's stored in the roots. So if you can go through and repeat and just kind of do the same thing over again, it'll help kind of get rid of them. And then just obviously bag them to repeat. Now Scotch broom, the bottom part, or the bottom picture is when it's in bloom. It has these pretty yellow flowers, admittedly, but these are actually in the pea family. So when they start to develop their seeds, they're actually like in these little pea pods that when they open up, they just kind of disperse it. But yeah, and then to the right here, we have when it's not, or it's starting to bloom. But so preferably you would attempt to pull these out of the ground, but they kind of grow, they can either grow really big or and in addition to that, their root system can go pretty deep, which makes them hard to pull out. So if you can't pull them out, it's still best to cut them at the base. They can potentially regrow from that. But if you cut at the base, it gives a lot less energy to grow back with. So now big question with this is how can youth get involved? So Phoenix Charter School runs a Oregon youth program during the school year and during the summer, but Oregon Youth Corps is a youth program dedicated to getting youth out in the woods to develop work skill and a love of the natural world. When I was a student, I participated in this program for, I think, the entire time I was going to Phoenix and a little bit afterwards. In fact, I'm still technically participating in it because I'm working with them, and then during the summer I'm going to be working with them as a crew leader. But yeah, so yeah, during the summer the applications for it open up to, since they run like larger operation. The age range for the program is 16 to 24, and it's very welcoming to people where it might be their first job. Like for me it was, and it offered pretty good experience for just learning what I need to do for work and all that. And if you know someone who's interested or anything like that, you can find the application on the Phoenix website. And I think that's it for me.